And welcome to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And folks, we got a great show. We got a great cast that's going to be here today with my host. And we want to talk about several things. We want to talk about the team takeovers in Chicago. We want to talk about the Chicago Bears leaving to go into Indiana. And most importantly, we want to talk about Larry Hoover. J.B. Pritzker is using him as a political pawn to be able to think that if he let Larry go, that black people going to vote for him. So if you ain't got nothing to do, call your friends and let them know. You're listening to Let the Truth Be Told Radio. I'm your host, Pastor David. Welcome, everybody. And welcome to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And first, let me give all praise to Yahuwah and Yahusha. That's God in Christ in Hebrew. Well, folks, another weekend goes by, and the city of Chicago is in a horrible place. Not only do we have the worst governor of all time, J.B. Pritzker, but Brandon Johnson continues to prove that he is a total idiot and have no leadership skills. You know, it's a shame that the Chicago Bears have been in Chicago for pretty much since I've known, well over 50 years or better. And they have become an icon and a landmark to the city of Chicago. But now this idiot, Brandon Johnson, who is allowing things like the Chicago Bears to leave Chicago and move to Indiana. And so we just got to wonder what's next with this clown. This clown has really tore the city up. But just like I said before, Brandon Johnson is not stupid. Brandon Johnson is following the script that was given to him by the Democratic Party. And their mission is twofold. They wanted to destroy the black community completely, and they wanted to be able to take over the city and create public housing like they did back in the 60s. And so now the people of Chicago are reeling. There's so many things that are happening to the city, and nothing is positive. Businesses are leaving. Brandon Johnson is condoning violence with the team takeovers and not being held responsible for what he needs to do. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how is it possible that the city of Chicago, the great city of broad shoulders, is being brought to his knees by a illiterate, ignorant, stupid man who says all his concerns are about illegal aliens. And in saying that, let me get my team in. What's up, Bink?
Howdy.
Let me get Randy in there, man. Randy?
Hey, how y'all doing?
And Doc, what's going on, y'all?
Hey.
Guys, you know, Chicago is a shithole. Now, I got to call it the way it is. You know, a friend of mine, Darren Bailey, called Chicago a hellhole. And he has been trying to retract the statements of what he said. And I spoke to him and I told him, look, man, you don't need to be retracting any statements when you're telling the truth. Because Chicago is one place in this country that has become not just a hellhole, but a shithole. And if you want to talk about the facts, then J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson has made Chicago a shithole. Your thoughts, Randy, on that?
Given that born and raised Chicago and myself, I actually absolutely concur that Chicago is a shithole city, and and it's validated by the simple fact that it's in the news. It's in the national news every other weekend, especially on holiday weekends for shootings, for riots, and for whatever else. All the wrong reasons. Chicago is in the news. So yes, it is a shithole, and it's due to the leadership. Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker at the governorship, they have allowed the deterioration of Chicago, and it's sad and it's unfortunate. So it's right on Darren to call it out for what it is. And no, he shouldn't retract his statements because then that's going to just motivate people to do right and say, well, you know what? Let me prove to you that we're not a shithole and we can actually be better people or do better things out here. That's a driving motivator. Hell, in the military, even in sports, in entertainment, you tell somebody that they trash, guess what? They get motivated to do better. So let's keep calling Chicago trash. Chicago, you're trash.
Your thoughts, Andre?
Yeah, and I do think that Darren Bailey is free to have his own opinion about Chicago. Because I remember one of my earliest memories about Chicago were kids jumping on cars and all the violence and the tourists getting beat up. And I thought to myself, if I ever had an opportunity to help people in Chicago, that's the first thing that I wanted to do because, Chicago is a part of the United States and we rise with the tides. So when Chicago rises, we all win. So this is why it's important to select policies that really grow Chicago. And right now, Mayor Johnson nor Pritzker are selecting policies that are helping Chicago win.
Mr. Binky?
Yeah, I'll make it quick.
Chicago.
It's all in the name.
Oh man, I love that. I love it. But
it is what it is. You see the crime, you see the political policies. People up there are complaining. I mean, Chicago going red. That group up there, and the way that people are treated. That's all you can say. Chicago.
Doc, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's always been
Well,
Democratic Party to turn these cities into what they are right now, and then turn around and blame the federal government for the position of these cities. Just, absolving themselves. Like, see, we had to take in these people to do that. At the same time, not taking responsibility for their actions. I mean, there was a young lady that was shot in broad daylight, and they released the person that
Doc,
in your city. Am I going in and out? Okay, I'll come out and come back.
Okay. And what's the real truth of the matter, guys, is they created the city to be this way. Yeah. They wanted Chicago to be brought to its knees because the Democratic Party, these are their last strongholds. They present no policies to the people of Chicago, the state of Illinois. They're not trying to create any economic wealth. I mean, basically, Chicago has become stagnant with idiocracy. And Brandon Johnson leads the way as the mayor. That really is a really sad situation that's going on in Chicago. But nevertheless, I'm going to get Doc back in and let Doc finish what she was saying. Go ahead, Doc. Let's hear you.
Now, can you guys hear me now? Is it better? Okay. No, what I was saying was it's all been systematic to lead to where we are right now. The Democrats have positioned themselves to not take responsibility for anything, blame the federal government for everything that they are going through right now to continue to destroy this country. There was a young lady, she was shot in broad daylight. that person was actually released. And then I think later on, because he committed another crime, that they actually took him back into custody. But what's happening now, this is a party issue. This is not a mayoral issue because it's happening in all of these predominantly democratically run cities and states. If you can just follow the money, follow the crime, right? They are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing under the United Nations agenda. It all goes back to that.
Well, you know, even what makes add injury to the insult is the fact that the Chicago Bears are about to leave the city of Chicago. Brandon Johnson was on the news the other day, and he was talking about some great plan. J.B. Pritzker got on the news and called him an idiot. So I just think this is all part of the game because the Bears are leaving. I'm going to play this clip, and we can talk about it, guys. Hang on.
I wonder if you'd like to respond to that governor next door about what's going on with the Bears right now.
After more than 100 years of touchdowns, championships, and Sunday afternoons at Soldier Field, the Chicago Bears have just told the National Football League that the city of Chicago is no longer one of their options.
That sounds like somebody that believes in big government and is kind of floundering from what they used to have as a state and a city that probably was run a lot better.
In late April 2026, team executives informed the league's stadium committee that only 2 locations remain on the table for the Bears' new home, and neither one of them sits inside the city limits of Chicago. One option is a 326-acre piece of land in suburban Arlington Heights, Illinois, and the other is across the state line in Hammond, Indiana. After more than a century split between Wrigley Field and Soldier Field, the city that built the Bears and the team that helped build the National Football League are getting a divorce. This is how it happened, how much it costs, and who pays the price. The Bears were not born in Chicago at all. The franchise started in 1919 down in Decatur, Illinois, as a works team of the A.E. Staley Starch Company, and in September of 1920, a young player coach named George Halas sat down inside a Hupmobile dealership in Canton, Ohio, and represented the team at the meeting that founded what would become the National Football League. The franchise fee came to exactly $100. A year later, Staley handed the team over to Halas with a $5,000 bonus, asking only that the name Staley's be kept for one more season. Halas moved the operation to Chicago, where they played their home games at Cubs Park, known today as Wrigley Field, and won the league championship that very first year. By 1922, Halas had renamed them the Chicago Bears, with his reasoning being simple. If baseball players are Cubs, then football players must be Bears. For 50 seasons, the Bears played at Wrigley Field, and then in 1971, they moved into Soldier Field, a stadium built in 1924 as a memorial to American soldiers killed in combat. Here's the first fact that explains everything that follows. In more than 100 years of existence, the Chicago Bears have never owned the stadium they play in. Wrigley Field belonged to the Cubs, Soldier Field belongs to the Chicago Park District, and the Bears have always been tenants. That tenant status produced 50 years of frustration. Back in 1977, the Bears looked at Comiskey Park. In 1978, they looked at Notre Dame Stadium. And in 1980, they nearly moved to the old White Sox Park. Mayor Harold Washington pitched a new West Side complex in 1986. DuPage County made an offer in 1991. And team president Michael McCaskey proposed a $285 million stadium of their own in 1995. Mayor Richard M. Daley floated a stadium sharing deal with the White Sox in 1998, and none of it happened. Finally, between 2002 and 2003, the city spent somewhere between $606 million and $690 million to renovate Soldier Field, and the renovation was so extensive that it cost the stadium its status as a National Historic Landmark. After all that money and all that controversy, Soldier Field today still seats just 61,500 fans. which is the smallest capacity in the entire National Football League. Lambeau Field in Green Bay seats over 81,000 for comparison. Chicago is the third largest metropolitan area in the United States, and it has never once hosted a Super Bowl. That is the direct reason why. When the Bears started looking at Arlington Park, they weren't acting on a sudden impulse. They were finishing a conversation that started back in the 1970s. Arlington Park was a thoroughbred horse racing track in Arlington Heights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, your thoughts on that? You're a Chicagoan.
You
Well,
know that
I
took
was
me down.
gonna say, in California, they took over the old racing track, the horse race track that used to be there. So actually, to me, that would be the best option for them. Go ahead, Randy.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I that took me down memory lane because I remember all that history. You know, it was going to Comiskey Park, you know, to see the White Sox play because I was, you know, raised mostly on the west side, but you know, went up to the south side. My mom lived literally like 5 blocks over from Comiskey Park, so you could hear the traffic and the raws of the game and stuff on Saturday nights and Friday nights, but so Soldier Field, you know, going to Soldier Field and seeing, you know, the majesty and of the historical reference, you know, it's a shame to see that Chicago, well, the leadership in Illinois, let me just put it like that, cannot say, hey, you know what, you are deserving of your own stadium. Let us put up the money. We spend money on other dumb things or on stuff that don't need to be spent on. So if we can afford to divert that and build you a stadium, and so you can stay home, and it you know, it's sad. I'm sad for it, but it is what it is. It's a business decision, and it's a rightful business decision that the Bears have to make for themselves.
Mr. Binky?
Well, it's like Dr. Nichols said a little bit ago. It's part of a plan. It's fundamental change. You know, it's funny to me how people that don't accept something that's working, that want to change it, they call it progress, and what it does, it destroys everything. And I don't get the idea of how we're supposed to sit back and accept this progress when we know it's wrong, it's bad, and they think that we're just. No, let me back up. We think we just sit back and accept this stuff. I don't think we should be doing that at all. You know, Illinois, as Dr. Nichols said, all the states that are going down the tubes are ran by Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
That's fact. So we just got to wake up here.
Dre, your thoughts?
I'm in agreement with Steve. We definitely need to wake up. And one of the things that I didn't really hear in the video, but I'm assuming this might be an issue, I'm going to kind of go to the rest of the panel, are the high taxes issue for the Bears. Well, then I can understand when a city is not managing its finances and it's constantly in debt, that you start to see businesses leave when they have said that they are going to tax the corporations. Well, the corporations have responded, and now they're going to Indiana. They're going to other places. And we're seeing at the same time that lawlessness and and the inability to handle the city has led to Walgreens also leaving well. So this is just a continuation of a pattern. Like you guys mentioned it, these Democrat cities are not being led very well. And we could look at example after example, and people are not only moving with their feet, they're voting with their feet. So as people continue to move, businesses continue to move, will the city of Chicago continue to move toward what Mr. Binky said, progress?
Doc?
Yeah, like I said, it's extremely sad what's happening, because I grew up with the Bears, they made fun of on SNL, but they were a household name like Mike Ditka, what I'm saying, on the sideline chewing his gum. Like these are things that you don't forget growing up, but it is destructive. Because I really don't think the Democrats get it. Even Kathy Hochul was like, well, the government needs to send us money. It's like, no, you need to manage your state.
Yes.
You're not managing your state. You're just taxing people because you think that's what you're supposed to do. The federal government's supposed to give us money, and then we're supposed to tax people into oblivion. And that's how it exists. Like, no, that's not how this works. Businesses come into your state because they want to build your state up. And then you get people in your state to work at those corporations. And then there's a balance of the taxes that get paid. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you don't have these outrageous budgets paying people $500,000 to, determine whether people should be going to school or not. Like ridiculous positions like that. Like you need to stop. If Florida can stop people from having state tax, income tax, and now property taxes, because they're going to raise the homestead exemption, get it together.
Well, guys, when COVID ended, there was a surplus of about $1 billion some dollars, $1.7 billion that was left. And this was before President Trump cut out sending money because they wanted to continue to fund the illegal invasion. And I told, Doc at the time, I said, Doc, watch and see if the government cut that money out, that $1 billion, 7.7 is still floating around. See, they can't take that money out of there because they don't have the money that they was getting from the federal government to wash it through. So now that money's still floating around, and they're trying to figure out ways to take that money out. And that's what we've seen with the businesses leaving. They've raised taxes, the corporate hit tax. I mean, you're talking about the teen takeovers, the damage that's being done throughout that. I mean, it is totally something that is bringing the city to its knees, and it's all done by design. Over the Memorial Day holiday, I think there was like 40-some people shot and quite a few people that are dead, and there was a teen takeover. And Brandon Johnson just act like it's the parents' fault. He's blaming it not on himself and his bad leadership, but he is saying that it's the parents' fault. He doesn't want to put a curfew out because he's saying that the young people need some place to be. But what they need is what we used to get back in the day, is an ass whipping. That's what they need. They don't need to be, if you don't know where your kids are and what they're doing, you're not a good parent. So when the state started to take away the parental rights, this is what we have. This is what we see. We have undisciplined children. They don't respect their homes. They don't respect their parents. They don't respect elders. They don't respect anything. And the fact of the matter is, J.B. Pritzker and the Department of Education in Illinois has created these illiterate children who are just being pushed through the school system and not being held accountable for what they do. I'm going to play this clip, guys, and we're going to talk about it.
17 girl was arrested on weapons charges the week before. 8 were arrested near Staten Lake after another teen takeover in the Loop. And here's how Chicago currently handles these teen takeovers. The city can enforce a curfew before 10 p.m. when large disruptive events occur. In January, City Council advanced an ordinance giving Police Superintendent Larry Snelling the power to declare a teen curfew anytime, anywhere, with at least 12 hours notice, but its future is still uncertain. At the time, Mayor Johnson said he opposed giving one person unilateral control and has rejected proposals to modify the 10 p.m. curfew. Instead, he's called on parents to watch their kids. But we know in a lot of cases that just isn't happening, which brings us back to the curfew debate. Here now to weigh in on this is local activist Jamal Green, whose opinion piece on teen takeovers was published in the Chicago Tribune last week. Jamal, first of all, want to thank you for coming on, taking time out for us today.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
Let's talk about this. Your op-ed piece was very more like a plan, laying out what you think should be done in this case. You're a parent. Let's start there. Give us your opinion from a parent's point of view, what you think is happening here.
Well, I'll tell you what, none of my boys would be out there doing what these kids are doing. I think there's definitely a a cultural problem. You know, we need a cultural reset in these neighborhoods. You know, it's one thing to say, oh, we'll call out to parents and not do anything, or we'll create opportunities. After school programs are not what's going to stop teen takeovers, right? Do we need to provide more opportunities? Yes. But one thing that we must provide first is accountability. You can't have opportunity without accountability. And young people should not be able to come downtown to be able to wreak havoc in our neighborhoods because it was a Hyde Park as well, with no accountability for it. We need to hold them accountable. We need to hold the parents accountable. We need to see what's going on at home. The parents got to be accountable for this. And if the parents need help, we can provide support as a city. But one thing what we cannot allow is our city to be in a place where there's lawlessness and there's no one doing anything about it. We have to jump on this and make sure that we are very ruling with an iron fist on downtown in these neighborhoods. We are not allowing teens to just run rampant, jump on cars, fight each other. Someone pulled a knife on a senior. We should not be allowing this, and we got to stop this right now.
You know, Jamal, you and I both grew up in the city of Chicago. I want to point out the fact somebody who watching may be like, where is he? You're on your way to an event, so you took out time to be with us today. But you and I both grew up in the city of Chicago. You heard that man that was in Hyde Park. He said, I would have never done this as a child. I'm sure you feel the exact same way. You mentioned accountability. That is something we've heard time and time again. In your opinion, what does accountability really look like here?
Well, when we have these mass takeovers, the city needs to jump on it immediately. We may need to have mass arrests. We may need to have fines for parents of those who continue to exemplify this behavior over and over again. But most importantly, the city got to be prepared for this. We should be monitoring what's going on social media when they're preparing these events and prevent them from happening. We need people on the CTA trains to be able to monitor when young people are gathering there before they get to where they're going. We got to try to stop things before they happen. We need to monitor social media. There's even AI technology where we can really be able to see who's starting the trend and where it's coming from to hold them accountable. And then when things like this happen downtown or Hyde Park or wherever, we need to be ready to act, and we need to act immediately. We got to make sure that certain corridors downtown are protected. When I was young, I would never think that I can go downtown with my friends and wreak havoc like this. I believe in opportunity. I believe in rec centers and night rec centers and things for kids to do. But one thing I know is that as mayor, Brandon Johnson should not be allowing young people to take over their streets, take over downtown, because this is where business is. These are where companies have their workers. These are where we're trying to lure businesses back because the city is in a deficit. We can't have young people ruining what's going on in our city. This got to be a city for everyone. And that's not anti-youth. That is pro-Chicago, where everybody can enjoy our streets.
You bring up a good point, because when you go.
All right, guys. Binky, what are your thoughts on what he's saying?
Well, he's sitting there he wants people held accountable. Well, it starts in your home. It's spread in the schools, and you got government that's promoting just what he's complaining about. And then he turns around and he wants more AI, more surveillance, more this, more that by government. No, that's not. Government's not fixing the problem. They're creating the problem, sir.
Yeah.
And you've got to provide, first of all, you got to take this victimhood stuff out. I apologize for saying it this way, and I'm putting people in a box here, but they've got the black community brainwashed and thinking they're nothing but victims, and they're owed. And this is what happens is these kids have no responsibility because their parents, the schools, and government are pounding this into their head. So now he wants more AI. He wants more surveillance. He wants more policing. He wants more fines. He wants the very people held accountable that are the problem. You got to fix society. You've got to fix that first. And the only way you're going to do that is people like us that see the problem first, and not expect the people that are creating the problem to to have them fix it. No, that's just a big revolving door. It keeps hitting you in the hind end.
Yeah.
Trey, you're up.
Yeah, and there were a lot of ideas given during the video. But the problem is that no one has a set plan about what they're going to do about the teen takeovers, because the teen takeovers didn't start happening yesterday. I remember they were happening in the 90s, and they still don't have a solution for it. And what I'd like to put into play is that there's going to need to be a multi-pronged approach, because how many of these teens involved in these teen takeovers actually have jobs? Because if they had jobs, I bet you a lot less of them would have been out in the downtown area doing the things that they were doing. Now, the Wall Street Journal just reported the other day that this is going to be the worst summer for teen jobs since 1948. In the 70s and 80s, teens used to work jobs at a rate of 50%. So 50% of teens were working.
Yes.
Now it's dropped to 35%. What's the problem? Part of the problem is coming from mass immigration. We saw over the last 4 years that they brought in all these people from all over the world, from over 100 countries, and they put them in black neighborhoods. And we're wondering why they're not hiring black teens. But at the same time, these teens have a discipline problem. And one of the things that the gentleman was saying in the video, Mr. Green was saying, was that we have to have a cultural transformation. The cultural transformation starts with the discipline. And the discipline should start in the classroom. It's to start at home. The parents should be held accountable. And we need to force these companies to hire these teens and take on the mantle to start to discipline and show these children how to work. Because if they don't, we're going to continue to have these teen takeovers, and we're going to continue to have these problems.
Doc?
Okay. Yeah. Well, again, this is all systematic. Okay. And to Mr. Binky's point, this gentleman was like, oh, yeah, we need all the surveillance and stuff. They want you begging for a solution that is worse than the problem it solves. They have created armies of uneducated individuals that they can control. They can control them with games and money and crime. Because see, crime is no longer accountability. And they just let them run around and do what they want to do. And the people that should be actually, crime is, there's a consequence to your crime, right? They've absolved people of that. People that are immigrants and people specifically in the Black community. So there's no discipline at all. Even with homelessness, there's no discipline. There's no shame. There's nothing. I'm just saying they want us begging for a solution that is worse than the problem it solves. They want the surveillance. They want the over policing. They want the overreach of government because they're wanting us, the adults in the room, to beg, hey, you have to help us. No. To your point, Pastor, they need a butt whooping. To your point, Mr. Binky, people need to actually start taking responsibility. If this person came out of your womb, that's your responsibility. You need to make sure that they're educated. It's not the school's job to make sure your son and daughter can read or write. That's your job. It's only the school's job to teach them the curriculum that's there, but it's your job at home to make sure that they understand the curriculum. There's no responsibility. There's no accountability anymore.
Randy?
To Andre's point, you're right. Teen takeover was happening in the 90s. Growing up in Chicago, we did teen takeovers, but this is how our teen takeover looked. We blocked off with the trash cans each end of the street, and we had block parties. And we kept, and the parents saw that they'd come out and they would supervise, make the Kool-Aid for us, make some sandwiches, and they controlled the traffic. Hey, these kids are out here playing. Y'all can go around to the next street and go to where you need to go. And that's how the community came together. Yeah, we got into mischief. Yeah, absolutely. And the police would pick us up and throw us in the back of the paddy wagon and brought us home. And both the cop and the mom would whoop our asses right there at the doorstep. So that's how we grew up in Chicago. But we relatively all in all came out okay. And to Dr. Shack's point, you're absolutely right. It is the parents' responsibility to educate the children, because before, and I know growing up, and I'm the oldest of 11 siblings, before you could go to school, you had to pass a proficiency test to even start kindergarten.
That's right.
You had to know how to you had to at least know your ABCs, 1, 2, 3s,
Yes.
and write your name on a piece of paper
Mhm.
at very minimum. And so
Yes.
we got away from all of that. You know, we've been talking about this for years now. You go to the store and these teenagers that's running, you know, little baristas at Starbucks and whatnot, they can't do simple math to give you
No,
your change back.
they can't.
You know, that was criminal, you know, growing up, because
Mhm.
when we ran, you know, little Kool-Aid stands on the corner.
Mhm.
You better know how to do some math to get your to get that change,
Okay.
or that person that's buying from you will slap you upside your head. You know, that was just common sense stuff. And we gotten away from, that's the problem with society. We gotten away from common sense. We gotten away from telling the truth. We got away from saying this is how we are supposed to be. These teen takeovers that's going on right now, these are not takeovers, these are mini riots.
Yes.
And the problem with what they're doing is there's no controlling mechanism to put an end to it. If I was the superintendent, the police chief there, I would say, okay, we know that they're going to be in this neighborhood. Let's cordon off, you know, that whole perimeter,
Yeah.
round their little asses up, and we're gonna take them on a field trip. And when those parents start saying, "Hey, where's my baby at?" You should have thought about that when they left out the house.
They have
Figure it
military
out.
schools. They have
Yeah.
military schools. People need to start going. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Well, you know, Binky, go ahead. You had a question. Go ahead, Bink.
Yeah. To what Andrew was talking about, the in the summertime, the kids got jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We don't have that like that no more.
No.
I mean,
Right.
we've got this automation going on. You know, like McDonald's, they eliminated a lot of stuff that provided those jobs, and
Yeah.
plus all these businesses are downsizing too. So
Mhm.
Andre is correct. We used to be able to go out and I did that. You had a job, acclimated you to when you get out of school to how to work.
Right.
You know, and now there's no pressure. There's funds, there's grants, people, drugs, whatever.
Mhm.
That's been replaced by progress, AI,
Right.
automation. You know,
Yeah.
Let me say this to all
But
of
there's
you.
there's a one thing I want to kind of throw out
Go
here.
ahead. Go ahead.
Is like people are no longer getting creative, because if you go on
Right.
Craigslist
Right.
right now, there's gigs, and there's
Yeah.
gigs for people that are moving. In that video that we watched, someone was moving, and I bet you they were leaving Chicago because they looked like they were going pretty fast, like they were trying to get the heck out of there. So there are jobs that people can find. They're not looking for jobs. They don't know how to look for
No.
jobs.
They don't know
you're
how to fill out an
teaching them.
application. They
Exactly.
can't read. They
We
can't do
got-
basic math. They can't comprehend anything. I'm telling you, they are creating a mindless soldier that they can control.
Yep, with emotion. With
You know what,
emotion.
guys?
We'll be mad about this.
All of you guys are correct. But let me tell you how it was. This past May 31st, I graduated from high school at 15, 1974. See, what's happening is, one, the parents not teaching the kids. Two, the politicians are not preparing programs that can interact with the children to make them be responsible adults. You know, I dealt with the excuse me for a minute. I dealt with the city of Chicago, called the Chicago Youth Organization, and they gave us jobs in 8th grade that we learned how to, become janitors. We would go to other schools, we would clean up, we would pick up garbage off the streets. There were block clubs in the city of Chicago. They were called block club parties, is when they would petition off the street. They would let the kids come out, but it was all done and controlled by the parents of the block and the aldermen. They would bring out food. They would bring out prizes, academic stuff. You could recite something, you would win a prize if you were dancing. I mean, the way the Black Americans were set up was, we were going to make sure our children could take over after we were gone. And so that type of lifestyle and type of structure is no longer in place, because now you have kids who are or who are competing who disrespect their parents. And that's because the parents have allowed the states to step into your family structure. You
But that's
can't
all
whoop
they
your
know.
kids. If your kids complain about you whooping them, or they go to school, which the schools aren't teaching them anything, and say, well, I got a whooping last night, then the teachers have authority to call the cops against the parents. And so it's a couple of things here why these takeovers are being done is because one, the parents are not disciplining the children. Two, society and the state set it up to where that they could take kids out of the home who were unruly and wouldn't be disciplined. And three, the politicians, the aldermen, the state reps, the senators, they made sure there was job opportunities for our young people with CYO. When I got in high school, I worked for Dominex Finer Foods. I played ball. I went to the job. It's the mindset. So these children do not understand how society operates, nor are the parents holding them accountable by continuing to kiss their ass and give them stuff and let them run the house and do whatever they want to do without being disciplined.
Because there are babies having babies.
Well,
15 and 13-year-olds having babies. They had no idea what a parent is. And so the parent over that 13-year-old that just had a baby, that's where this started. It started with grandma.
Well, and that's one of the things that structure is no longer in place. And so when you have it like it is now, we're going to continue to see these takeovers because the mayor of Chicago doesn't have a clue, and parents aren't holding him accountable, and parents are not pushing back against the state. Because when the 90s came, the Department of the Human Child Services, they were so big inside the black family, at least, for sure, to keep them from disciplining their kids so they could create the type of children that we see today.
This army.
And to your point, Pastor, you're absolutely right. When you said block club, you threw me in another flashback there. I remember growing up, you had that little bulletin board that was stuck on the corner. It was made out of wood. It was nicely, done up. But that was like the community announcement board, and on the top of it said Block Club, and it had the street name, and so it lets you know like what neighborhood it was covering basically. And you would go out there, and parents would put tack up like whether they're going to have a yard sale, if there was an upcoming house party, stuff like this. So it was like a little neighborhood announcement board. And then over the like the next course of like I would say as I started going into my teenage years, because it was when I was still young, it went away. Somebody shot it up, tore it down, and all that, and it went away. And so we gotten away from that kind of community. And then growing up, the in the summer, I worked at the Chicago parks, and we had the summer jobs, and it was only for the teenagers. You sign up
exactly.
You sign up at the end of the school year. You
yes.
sign up, and they will call you.
Who's doing those jobs now, Randy? It's probably illegal aliens.
The illegals are doing the job.
Doing those jobs.
Or
undereducated,
illiterate
that
adults.
Been here for a long time. Go ahead.
Yeah. Undereducated, illiterate adults that can't read above a 5th grade reading level.
Yep. You had to, and we had to. When we signed up, they would call your household. Talk to your parents and make sure you got permission, and you was good to go. And you show up, and they would come. They would say, "Do you need transportation?" Yes. Hey, okay. You meet us at this corner of Chicago and Cicero. We got a van sitting in the parking lot at the barbershop, and we'll take you all to work and drop you off there, and you can ride your bike home or whatever type of thing. That's what we did growing up. But we, like to everybody's point, we gotten away from that mentality because these people have allowed society to become stupid because they're engineering the system to make us stupid. And it's sad to see. It's very sad.
Absolutely.
Watch the movie Idiocracy. Like that's what we're doing right
now. Exactly. Great
that's
point.
Why it's so terrifying. And you just look around like you can go to McDonald's or any of these fast food restaurants and you say, okay, can you remove the ketchup and add this? And you see the person look at you like,
that's because they have
they
not
gotta touch the picture because they can't read.
Right, exactly. And that's what we've seen throughout my life, and watching what we're at right now. It's just like the parents have no control over the kids. The school system are teaching the kids everything except how to read, write, to have some kind of cognizance of who they are. They don't know about the country. They don't know about the penal system. They don't know how they know nothing. And yet they're passing them on to get out of school. And now you got an ignorant adult who's going to have kids, and their kids going to be ignorant. And this is the result of it. Those who are watching this show might be saying, "Oh, Pastor talking crap." No, Pastor telling you the truth. This society does not care about smart children.
Yeah.
They don't care because in
They
19
care about certain smart children.
now, let me tell you something. In 1974, when I came out of high school, I had all sorts of scholarships that we wrote essays to get scholarships. You know, Johnson Publishing Company. I mean, they're not teaching the kids how to be smart. They want them to be dummies, just like you said, Doc.
You're
And that's
creating a
what we're
caste
seeing.
system. Like right now, Berkeley, they're not allowing their students to use AI, but other colleges are
Yes.
allowing their students to use AI because those other colleges with the AI, they don't want people to actually be able to think and use judgment. But the
And
people
this-
in Berkeley, they do. So they're creating the have and the have-nots.
This is what Brandon Johnson said about this when questioned by William Kelly.
Chicago is making national news on a weekly, if not daily basis due to viral videos of violent black teenagers taking over Chicago neighborhoods, assaulting not only Chicago citizens, destroying property, but assaulting police officers, sending them to the hospital. Real Chicagoans, law-abiding Chicagoans are asking me if this is a Chappelle Show sketch when you brag that somehow 40 plus people being shot over Memorial Day weekend is some kind of a success. We have, half a dozen police officers sent to the hospital due to being rammed in a car by a violent black teenager at one of these takeovers.
Thank you, William. Thank you. Let's wrap up the question. Let him answer, please.
You didn't interrupt anyone else's question.
No.
Why would you interrupt my question?
Please ask the question.
Every reporter here has asked multiple questions. Why would you interrupt my question? Why?
Please ask the question. Thank you, William.
I understand that every other reporter wants to talk about how the police are the problem, which is your policy, which is your rhetoric, which has led to these kinds of problems, according to the citizens, the real law-abiding citizens of Chicago. They say that your rhetoric and your policies are actually causing
William,
these violent
can we
black teenager
please get to the question and let the mayor answer your
takeovers.
question?
So the question is, if police officers can't be safe in the city of Chicago, if a police officer can't even transport a violent repeat offender to a hospital without being murdered, then how can the average citizen be safe?
Safety is our top priority, and I've always said repeatedly that it's not policing alone, right? Police officers are being asked to do more and more each and every day. And that's why I've worked hard to expand behavior and mental health support services, right? So that it takes off some of that pressure off of law enforcement to respond to those scenes. As far as these teen trends, we're all working hard to prevent them from happening. And, the reckless behavior of this individual who drove the car and harmed our officers, I'm grateful that they are recovering, and I believe that individual was not even a Chicagoan, if I'm not mistaken. And depending on your definition of a teen, this person was
He was 18. He was 18 years old.
So by
18 years
some
old.
definition, old enough to vote.
Did you turn my
and is an
microphone
adult.
off?
So thank you.
Okay, so my follow-up question is simply this. You're going to Rome, all expense paid, luxury vacation, the type of vacation that no Chicagoan, very few Chicagoans could possibly ever experience in their entire lifetime. And what real Chicagoans are asking me is, who's paying for this? This
Thank you.
World
I get
Business
your
Chicago.
question.
No. The World Business
It's
Chicago
World Business
is a
Chicago.
Chicago. I mean, you're the chairman or the
It's
president.
a World
of this.
Business Chicago that
and
is-
how
says-
many of the people on this trip have business with Chicago, have contracts with Chicago, are vendors? What do they expect
World
for
Business-
for them paying for your trip? What do they get in return?
World
What is the
Business-
quid pro quo?
World Business Chicago is an apparatus that was designed by previous administrations to help build and attract business to Chicago, and we're doing that. we cannot deny the fact that we are moving in the right direction. And we're going to continue to build the safest, most affordable big city in America. And we're going to remain open for business. But unlike other previous administrations, Chicago is just not for sale. Thank you.
Doc, your thoughts here first.
Okay, first of all, that's got to be a part of a UN strategy because they own all of our mayors, by the way. I just need to let people know there's a consortium of mayors around the 50 states that actually are a part of the United Nations. Because, see, they're like, we can't take over the presidents, we can't take over the governors, we can't take over the senators or the House of Representatives, but we can control the mayors at the local level because that's where the money's disseminated. That's where the actual power is. It's at the local level.
And the school board.
He's a disgrace.
And
as far as the mayor. Yeah, and the school boards especially, because that's where a lot of this de-education is happening. But it's really sad for him to sit there. He can't answer those questions. He knows the city is unsafe. He actually protested. He ran on defunding the police. He ran on this stuff. And people still voted for him and put him in office. And you wonder why your city looks like, Judge Dredd.
That's you're absolutely right, Dr. Shack. And the crazy part about Brandon, I love William Kelly, by the way. I love his style. He be going in, and the sad part about Brandon Johnson is that no one is actually holding him accountable. And what I mean by that is there's not a consortium of Chicagoans at his door every day, like overrunning the security and like being on his desk every day. If he had that, I guarantee you things would be a lot different in Chicago because he'd be like, I am not safe.
They wouldn't. They'd be the same way. You got to remember, this is a machine. Yeah. He's responsible to the machine, not the people.
But if they start making an example out of these politicians, they just start turning them around. And unfortunately, we're not going to get there.
Dre?
He said that safety is their top priority. Well, I need him to show me some tangibles. I think that we come up with like a lot of great ideas, and Mr. Green had a lot of great ideas on his video that he brought up. But we need to have something written down and in legislative policy at the local level to start dealing with these teen takeovers, or we'll have this same conversation 30 years from now. Oh, how are we going to deal with these teen takeovers? Oh, I remember how it was in the 2025s when they were just out there jumping on cars.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to do that when you're writing policies that literally aid and abet criminal behavior. They're writing policies that are doing that. So it's hard to hold the babies accountable if nobody else is being held accountable.
That's right. And this is why elections matter. This is why we need to pressure the aldermen to bring up some legislation on, the teen takeovers. Somebody has to do something because we can continue to talk about it until we're blue in the face. But until there's like a strategy, nothing's going to happen.
Mr. Yankee?
Brandon Johnson also brought up something else when he was questioned by Mr. Kelly. Who's paying for this trip? Who's benefiting from this trip? He mentioned there was previous policy that allows me to go over to conduct business. No, there's no previous policy.
No.
What does the who has the authority? Show of hands. Who has authority on trade? The states or federal government?
Federal government.
The president, actually.
So he's sitting there. This is where it all boils back down to. When you don't follow what your job is or the Constitution, that's what you have. Pigster went down to Mexico. He was making deals down there too. He has no business doing this.
Exactly.
So until we Dave, you mentioned we don't have control of schools. We don't have control of the crime. We don't have control of the city. We don't have control of government. That's our problem.
Yes.
We've got to start controlling government and making them understand we're the bosses here. Yeah. You've got the rules to go by. Start going by the rules. And then everything will start falling into place a little bit easier. And they're going to fix it all. But
they become tyrannical, and we have every right to demand a form of government that works for the people. Because right now this is working against us.
When they can make laws telling teachers and barbers and beauticians and stuff, if you see any bruises on a kid, you got to call and report it in. When the state can come in and just out of a whim take your kids out or take your elderly parent out of their home into custody, we've got a problem.
And you know what? This all started with Lyndon Johnson when he gave welfare to the Black community and moved the Black man out the family structure. It has been a continuation of destroying the Black community. And this is where we're at. We're here. You know, parents lack authority over their children. They've given it to the schools. They've introduced them to the homosexual lifestyle. What we're seeing with the teen takeovers is from Black Lives Matter.
Come on.
That's where we're seeing it from. That teen takeovers really came to this place because of what happened with George Floyd in Minnesota and Mike Brown in St. Louis. All of these Black Lives Matter structure has been put to our young people, and our young people are only acting the way that they see fit because they know that nothing will happen to them. There's no consequences. There's not me going to jail. Here's a solution. First, whoop their ass, change the law and give the parents back their authority, then turn around and put them in jail. Remember, it used to be Audie homes, which was for juveniles. Bring back the Audie home. Put their asses in the Audie home and let them find out what prison going to be like. Let them see what it's going to be like to be locked down and told what to do when you eat, when you sleep. You get out there and you do hard jobs, breaking the ground, shoveling. Get them back to a place where they can be under control.
Well, that's why I said military school. That they need to bring military schools back.
Right.
In math.
I spent the day in the Audie
course
home.
correct.
Oh man, Pastor, I'm sick of you already, man. You make me have all these flashbacks. I'm getting PTSD right now.
Because they had a place in St. Charles, man, and one of my
St. Charles,
St. Charles, they was going like, you know, when we was coming up and we was out in the streets, you know, we did things, but we respected our parents and we respected our last name. You know, you didn't want to bring dishonor to your family or your last name. And so that type of mindset is gone, especially now. You got a bunch of illiterate kids running around that's doing crazy stuff and they're not being held accountable. And society, like Brandon Johnson is saying, oh, that's okay. That's okay. It's totally ridiculous on what happened this weekend. And I'm going to get into the last segment, but it's totally ridiculous what happened at the graduations over the Memorial Day weekend. You had people graduating that couldn't even read or write, doing flips, starting fights. I mean, it was crazy. And guess what? It was done mostly in the Black community. It was the Black schools that allowed these things to happen and they not be held accountable. It was some of the Black colleges, because I saw one at Black College, the sister started doing flips. The next thing you know, you had everybody doing flips and they jumping up, hollering and throwing stuff. That's chaos. That is no structure. And that's the reason why we're in this condition. Randy, your thoughts?
You know, seeing how kids are when they graduate from school reminds me of the days when we made the plan to fight on graduation day because we knew we weren't going to get suspended. We knew nothing was going to happen. so it was kind of like a free pass to go whoop some ass. And that's what we called it. It was a free pass, whoop ass. And so it's unfortunate that it evolved the way it has because now it's like indiscriminate. At least back then, you know, we had targets, you know, so I don't know.
I mean, they are one step away from the purge.
Yeah, it's true. I was just going to say
that's where they're at. They're going to be like, well, yeah, let's just give everybody that 24 hours to just get out all their anger, and then the rest of the year we'll just be good. No, stop it. Bring shame back. Make shame great again. Okay, people need to be shamed for what they're doing. We have to admit, you know, the teenage mothers And fathers, it didn't work. But guess what? There used to be teenage mothers and fathers before, but they had discipline. Those men and women knew that they were responsible for those children, and they had to be responsible because it wasn't anybody else's responsibility. And government was not over the family the way they are now. They are literally creating something that is truly tyrannical. And it just
let me throw this in here, guys, and we're going to talk about it.
What? Why? Oh my.
Graduation ceremonies are suddenly the most exciting ticket in town.
That's Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, that's Ohio.
That's right. If you're lucky, your graduation ceremony might just turn into a WWE match.
Bridgeport police didn't say why it started, but authorities claim it involved at least 2 unrelated families. 2 of the 3 people arrested were charged with assault of a public safety officer.
In this video, you see several people running, throwing punches, including someone in a cap and gown.
This graduation is out of control.
Parents and friends in the stand say they tried waiting out the commotion. Many wanted to see their senior cross the stage. But some parents told me despite having security at the graduation, they did not feel safe sticking around. In this video, you see graduates leaving during the ceremony.
They're going to stop having graduation ceremonies. They're literally going to stop doing this.
I run out the back.
I don't know. They fight. Oh my God! Wow!
This was sent to us from a viewer. In the video, you can actually see people getting escorted out after the brawl. Right now, there's no word on what caused the commotion.
A day of celebration turns into chaos at the Siegel Center after a fight breaks out during John Marshall High School's graduation.
We were able to finish the graduation ceremony as planned.
I know what you're thinking. Why is this guy's hair Smurf blue? I was ready to go off on this guy myself, but it turns out he does this for a good reason.
100% of the members of the senior class at John Marshall High School is receiving a diploma this year. Earlier this year, Superintendent Cameras promised that if students hit that milestone, he would dye his hair blue. And you can see he kept that promise, as you can see in this video posted on social media by Richmond Public Schools.
Well, I don't know. After seeing this, maybe the 100% graduation rate is due to a lower bar? Regardless, best of luck at the graduation ceremony you have to go to.
Yeah. They're going to stop having ceremonies. They really are. They're just going to start passing them and just giving them paper and saying, "Get out of here."
No, not even not even paper. No, send them an email or a text. You graduated. That's it.
You know, yay! Here's a certificate to McDonald's.
Guys.
I mean, they're going to stop the ceremonies. They're not going to have them anymore.
You know what? The guy said something that was very powerful at the end. He said that basically the parents are responsible for what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of the parents started it.
Yeah. And not only that, too, when you start talking about a graduation rate, let's talk about the graduation rate. He said he had 100%. But when you lower the grading scale down to a place to where a dumb kid can pass without being knowledgeable about what they're supposed to learn, then you have these idiots that are running around with no knowledge, that have no structure. They don't know what they're going to do after high school, and so that's why we're seeing this. We got illiterate kids with the lack of structure and discipline that are just going buck wild. But also, look at the mothers. Look how the mothers are dressing. They're dressing with the dress all up to their butt. They're not parents like our parents were, who came in a suit and tie. You better not even look funny at graduations when parents was in control of their households. So this is what it has come down to where it's a melee. Everything that's happening right now that the government has allowed, the state governments has allowed these children to be idiots. They allowed them to fight. They allowed the takeovers. And this is what we got. And this is what we're going to continue to see this if there's no policies or some type of structure brought back to the family structure that these kids are held accountable. Now, guys, I wanted to play that, but I also want to play this last video before we get out of here. Last year, I was able to meet with Kwame Kilpatrick, who was part of the pardon czar for Mr. Alex Johnson, who's the pardon czar. I explained to him the reason why Larry Hoover was locked up. It was the very next day that they took it to President Trump, and President Trump waived the 6 life sentencing for Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover has been locked up for over 50 years. In the state of Illinois, 20 years is a life sentence. And so he's done already 2 life sentences in the state prison. So what has happened now is that he's up to be paroled. And once President Trump got rid of the federal charges, Larry should be at home. He's a 75-year-old man. He needs to be with his family, and he can make a difference out here in the streets with the young people. But they don't want that. They want to keep him locked up. And Larry did a lot of things that benefit the Black community. Like he complained about Planned Parenthood coming to the city while he was locked up at Century 21, when almost 15 to 20,000 people marched on the city of Chicago and said, we don't want these abortion clinics in our community. Thus, they said he ran a criminal enterprise because he kicked against what was bad for the Black community, and they made it seem as though he's the big kingpin or whatever. Most of the people that committed crimes, Larry Hoover had nothing to do with. Like the murder of Pookie. This guy robbed some dope dealers. They caught up with him and they killed him. But because of the RICO Act, and they wanted to get Larry off the streets for the positive things he was doing, they made sure that they blamed him and said he ran a criminal enterprise, and thus keeping him in prison. The point that I'm getting to now is this. J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, has clemency papers for Larry. He could stroke the pen and put Larry out of prison immediately. He could have did that a long time ago. But what J.B. Pritzker is doing, he's using Larry Hoover as a pawn. To think that if I wait till the last minute and I sign off and let Larry Hoover out, then all the Black people gonna come and vote for me. I think Black people would be stupid as hell in any Chicagoan, especially Black people, to vote for J.B. Pritzker after he's done what he's did. He destroyed the schools with homosexuality. He created DEI and hired all his friends throughout the state. I mean, he created the SAFE Act to where he allowed illegals to come and kill American citizens in the state of Illinois. He has done everything that he could. He allowed for all the illegals who he's been funding with Brandon Johnson to take over the Black community. And so I think Black people would be stupid if they think that J.B. Pritzker is going to hold Larry and free him before election time and Black people will vote for him. That's not going to happen. I'm going to play this clip, guys, and we'll talk about it before we get out.
Pastor, before we play the clip, I did want to say one more thing about the teen takeover video. I think what we're seeing is Proverbs 25, verse 28. A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. And what we're seeing is that these kids don't have self-control. Their parents don't have self-control. My parents didn't go to my graduation. And part of the reason why they did not was because they had ops. And they knew that they didn't want to get arrested. They didn't want to be in the South Boston Inquirer because they had to go out and whoop somebody in my high school. So they had some self-control and they didn't show up. Now, I was mad for a little while, but as an adult and looking at this, I realized why they didn't go. But we have to basically set the boundaries because we've seen that these schools have been broken into, and it's like a city without walls, meaning that they have no structure, they have no mechanism to keep these kids under control, and it's just spreading out into the rest of the
But that's
city.
the thing. They don't want them under control. They want them to think this is normal.
Right.
They're normalizing this. They're celebrating this. There are people, trust me, at home going, see, you got him. You did that. Instead of somebody saying, shame on you. You should never do that again. And somebody needs to go to prison. Nobody's having that conversation.
And then the rest of the nation is laughing at our people, which makes me so upset.
And saying we're animals. And they're uncouth and they don't know how to act. It's like, no, if you let people act out who they really are,
right,
with no self-control, this is what you get.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
And this is why I say, you know, they talk about the street organization, all the street gangs and stuff like that. You can go after these guys and you put Larry in prison for all of these years and yet instill the crime rampant because of the 94 crime bill. They wanted these things to happen so they can continue to blame him. You know, instead of taking responsibility for themselves, they created him to be a monster. And this is the problem I'm having with it, is because when we was coming up, I know Larry Hoover personally. When I was 12, I became a GD at Moran Park at the field house. And it was all about education. I'll never forget what he told me. He said, young buck, go to college, make something out of yourselves. These streets ain't for you out here. And I did. I went to college at 15 and I made something out of myself. So for me to see him be in this position and painted as a picture, as a person that didn't care about the black community, but that's what the problem is. You see, guys, what I see and what we did on the show about a week ago, Malcolm X and Dr. King, they love black people. See, we don't have leadership that love black people, because if we did, they wouldn't allow all these things to happen to our community. All these aldermen in Chicago, the aldermen back in the day would held those parents accountable, and the children would no way act the way that they're acting now.
Well, that was part of COINTELPRO. That was the whole thing, right? They will never, ever again have a black messiah. This was all a calculated plan. It goes back to the FBI, goes back to the CIA, and all the other national, government intelligence agencies. This was not an accident. That's what I need people to stop. We're not just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. No, this is systematic. Somebody needs to be held responsible, and we know exactly where they are. We know who they are, and I'm sick and tired of everybody, clutching their pearls like, I can't believe this. Believe it.
Believe it.
Yep.
They did it on purpose.
It was done on purpose. And another reason why they don't want Larry Hoover out is because he'll galvanize these young people out here in the street.
Absolutely.
And so they want to keep him locked up. And J.B. Pritzker has been using him for a pawn all of these years because they've allowed them to do stuff like this. Watch this video, guys.
His name is Larry Hoover. He's the reputed leader of the black gangster Disciples street gang, one of the largest in the nation. For 20 years, he's been locked behind prison walls because of a murder conviction. This week, he goes before the state parole board, and he could soon be a free man. Tonight, he is breaking his silence. Channel 2's John Davis has the story you'll see first on Channel 2 News.
I've done my time. I paid my debt to society.
Larry Hoover, also known as King Larry, the reputed head of the black gangster Disciples. He is now 42 years old, older and wiser, he says.
Anytime you do a extensive amount of time, it can have two effects. It can harden you, or it can make you think. And I've thought.
And apparently he's done a lot of thinking about stopping the senseless gang-related violence plaguing the streets of Chicago. Violence, he says, over vague ideologies.
One teenager don't like the other teenager because the way he wears his hat, because his ideology is different from his. A disciple don't like a vice lord. We all black people. It's no different.
Hoover admits to being one of the architects of Chicago's fragile gang truce. He also takes credit for authorizing members of his so-called street organization to march on City Hall last May during a protest over plans to close health care clinics in African-American neighborhoods. After spending 20 years in the Illinois prison system, Larry Hoover has just about seen it all. He started out at the maximum security prison at Stateville. 6 years ago, he came here to Vienna, a minimum security prison in the southern part of the state. Some say it is the final step toward freedom. Hoover says he knows he can't change the past, but that he wants the chance to prove that he can be a positive influence on the future. John Davis, Channel 2 News.
Okay,
Yeah,
guys,
they
your
locked
thoughts
him
on
up
that.
because he was effective, not because he was ineffective.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the marches that he did on City Hall, and you heard them say, because he didn't want the clinics in the community. He didn't want abortion clinics in the Black
Planned
community.
Parenthood.
That's what yep,
Specifically.
exactly. And so when he was able to organize us to march and say, we don't want these clinics because they're not healthcare clinics, but they're clinics that are going to destroy
Right.
the Black
The
community.
community. Mhm.
And so they made it to where he made it as if he was running a criminal enterprise. That was all bullshit and lies. It all was to keep this brother locked up because he was going to galvanize the Black community. Now I want to play this clip and then we can talk about this last clip and get out of here. Like I said, Larry is up to be paroled. JB Pritzker with the stroke of a pen because the paperwork is on JB's desk right now. After we got Larry out of the 6 life sentences that from the feds, then JB Pritzker should have automatically signed the paperwork to let Larry out because he served over 2 life sentences, 2.5 life sentences, because 20 years is a life sentence in the state of Illinois. Let's watch this and we can comment on it before we get out of here.
Other news tonight, he is one of Chicago's most notorious gang leaders, and now his bid for freedom is up to Governor Pritzker. So who is Larry Hoover and what's behind his push for clemency? NBC5's Alex Maragos has this story.
Natalie, outside of Al Capone, Larry Hoover could go down in the record books as one of the most prolific and profitable gang leaders in Chicago history. He's one of the founders of the Gangster Disciples, but he spent over 50 years of his life behind bars. The question tonight, could that soon change? In 1974, Hoover was sentenced to 200 years in prison for the murder of William Pookie Young. And while he was in state prison, federal prosecutors say that he led the gang's operations, raking in hundreds of millions of dollars in drug sales and directing a string of violence on the streets of Chicago. And federal prosecutors won convictions that locked him up then in the so-called Supermax prison in 1994. And many of those years he spent in solitary confinement. That was until last spring, when President Trump commuted his federal sentence, and that placed Larry Hoover back in an Illinois cell. Now, Hoover's latest bid for freedom took a step on April 7th of this year. His family, his attorneys, and supporters asked the Illinois Prisoner Review Board to recommend clemency to Governor Pritzker. Now, the Cook County State's Attorney argued against clemency. They filed documents showing why he should not be let out of prison. Now, the recommendation that the review board reached is confidential, and it will remain that way. The governor has that recommendation now, and there is no deadline for him to make a decision on this. He can consider it as long as he likes. Now, Hoover's family and supporters say that the 75-year-old is remorseful. He's ready to help the community, and he suffers from some health problems. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office says that Hoover still represents a danger to the community, and the gang which he helped found is still present on the streets of Chicago. President Trump helped Hoover over one hurdle to freedom, but now the governor must decide if Hoover's finish line is drawn at home or in a prison cell. Natalie?
All right, thanks to Alex.
All right, guys.
His only danger is that he is successful and he's effective.
Yes.
That's his danger.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts, Randy?
You know, I growing up in the hood, I had an opportunity to speak to Larry Hoover on the phone, and it was a brief conversation. He was just like, don't end up like me. Don't keep yourself out of jail and do the right thing. And listen to those adults on the streets, and that was it. That was a conversation, and I got punched in the chest afterwards. But for Larry Hoover, he should be out. Certainly been in prison 50 years, 75 years old. What harm is he actually going to do in Chicago aside from
his mind is the harm.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to go to is aside from spitting knowledge to people, and that's what they're afraid of. And so, for JB Pritzker to use this as a political pawn, I hope the Black community and I hope Chicago, Illinois sees this for what that is and vote accordingly and get him the deuces.
Your thought, Mr. Binky? Then you got you, Dre.
Yeah, I don't know what the whole case was about or anything, but if it was just over murder, how did they come up with 200 years? My is my first question.
Which is
Second question is, how would he be a threat to society because of a gang that's still existing? It makes no sense. That's assumptions. So it sounds like, why everybody else gets a second chance, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't that what the Democrats are always saying? Everybody deserves a second chance, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. You're freeing people, illegal immigrants out here that got records after records after records.
Mm-hmm.
There's people out there that are not fit to stand trial that slit the throat of a Ukrainian woman, but yet he was fit for society to be part of. Wait a minute here.
Right.
So
come on.
I think the guy deserves the clemency.
Dre?
Continue what Steve is saying. There was an illegal alien who worked in an ABC store. Might have been it was some kind of liquor store, but he ended up beating some patron with a bat and beat him severely. And instead of keeping this individual in jail, they released him a few days later. ICE had to track him down, and they found him a few days later. But instead of releasing this illegal alien to ICE, they decided that they were going to release him without telling ICE. Now, that's a policy decision. With Larry Hoover, he murdered somebody and got 200 years. So it's more than just a murder. They're trying to keep this guy behind bars, like Dr. Nichols said, because of his mind and his ability to create outreach to the community that would improve the community. And he spoke against the coveted abortion clinics, and that's just a no-no. So they got together and worked with the people that were in charge of his sentencing and did what they had to do. Now, if J.B. Pritzker decides that he's going to use this as a political pawn, let him. Because if he signs the paperwork, who cares what he thinks about what he did? I hope that the city of Chicago will be smart and they will continue to push back against his policies and not vote for him. But if at the end of the day he signs the paperwork, whatever.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here. Your last thoughts, Mr. Mickey, you up first.
Well, we've brought up a lot of stuff about the problem. Another problem happened in another state here in Virginia, where a registered sex offender exposed himself in a high school. I believe it was a high school locker room with women.
Yep.
And the judge threw it out. Threw that case out, citing vagueness of the 14th Amendment because the guy claimed he was transgender. So there's the system here. Now, we're coming up on the 4th of July here. After everything that we've talked about here, everything that we've discussed, the rights, the wrongs, the governments, the problems, the solutions, in 1 month, we will be celebrating our independence, our freedoms. And I want everybody to stop and think, what is the 4th of July, the 250th year? Is it really about freedom or is it about a party? Because as we've been trying to tell everybody for a long time, we've got issues in this country and it ain't about freedom. It's about tyranny. And that's what we've got to start deciding. Do we want our freedom and celebrate our 250th year and go for our freedom? Or are we just going to party and let things continue on the way they are?
Randy?
Excellent summary there, Steve. And I 100% agree with you. We are getting ready to celebrate 250 years of chaos because that's what this country is. That's what this country has devolved itself to is just chaos. And while we are the greatest country in the world in terms of opportunity, in terms of economic mobility in comparison to a lot of things. Yes, a large part in our freedoms as well, and I do concur there. However, we do have a lot of issues that are unaddressed or ignored, and so I would challenge America to stand up and say, you know what, on this 250th year, we need to do better going forward. So at 500 years, we can really be who we were meant to be. So with that being said, I thank you all for the great discussion today. Go follow my channels and our Perm, and I will catch you all in a couple of weeks. I don't know if we'll be back this week, but next week I got convention. So ciao, ciao.
Dre?
I am in full agreement with Mr. Binky, and I want you to know that Congress is working on what you talked about with the transgender, and they're going to address some of the illegal alien issues where these illegal aliens have been assaulting people in schools in Fairfax City and in Loudoun County. They're going to bring them into Congress on June 10th, some of the parents and some of the students, to talk about what's been going on. So that's the first step. They bring it out before a committee in Congress, and then they're going to start to think about laws that they can put in place to start dealing with this garbage. We have to come up with solutions for these problems that we have. Like I was saying earlier, we can talk about these things until we're blue in the face, but until we put together policies that are legally going to set a standard, we're going to be talking about this 10, 15, 20 years from now. One of the things that Numbers USA has been supporting is the Americans First Act. And what this act does, it gets rid of chain migration and unnecessary work programs like the operational training program, and it will eliminate 275,000 annual illegal aliens into the country. Sorry, not illegal aliens, legal immigration into the country. And that's going to benefit Americans and put them first as far as making them a priority for work.
Doc, your last words.
Okay. Thank you for everybody for what you said. And Andrea, I appreciate what Congress is going to do, but we already have laws. They're just not enforced.
That's right. Absolutely.
So we don't need more policy on, it's like paper on top of paper. And then I'm going to have a meeting after the meeting, and then we're going to get together and discuss it. Like, I'm tired of that. That's why I started the redemption party.
The problem is, like, with each administration, they've taken like an interpretation of our laws. And that's why we have to have laws on top of laws, because we have to combat the interpretation.
No, we don't. We need to stop that. No, we need to stop that. We need to go back to the Constitution where it says when you become tyrannical, you are no longer in charge.
Right.
And we, the people, demand you will remove yourself. And if you don't, you do not want us to have to take it by force. Right. And that's it. We are at 250 years because people have fought, bled, and died for this country. We didn't fight. We didn't bleed. We didn't die for it to devolve into complete chaos. We're not turning it over. We're not going to do belly up. We're not going to play nice in the sandbox. If you come after our freedom, it's going to be a fight. And that's what they want. But just understand, you're not going to win. Okay? This is not going to be like the Civil War and Reconstruction ends and we do this little dance over again. It's going to be a lot worse.
Right.
And guys, you don't want this.
I want to
don't want it.
For your comments and showing up. We'll get together, and we want to continue to bring solutions to America so that we can get back to a place of structure and get control of our government and our families and our households. Thank you guys for being there. I want to thank everybody for watching the show, and I want to give you my last words. America, land of the free and home of the brave. 250 years of what freedoms? When the Constitution was written, Black people were slaves who served those who was writing the Constitution. And yet the Constitution has been put in a place to where it no longer exists and nobody abides by it. So for what I'm saying this is because the American people and patriots across this country, our freedoms have been taken from us already. We are not in control of this country anymore. 250 years of what freedoms? What will we be celebrating until we have this country under control? Until we get rid of all the illegals. And I want to say this about Larry Hoover. He was put in prison because of what somebody said. But the Democratic Party has opened borders. They created the Safety Act laws that allow criminals who killed Megan Boss, raped her dead body, and put her into alcohol or some solutions. The Democratic Party created the Safety Act, which allowed Sheridan Gorman to be killed on the lakefront where it's supposed to be a place to relax and to take your families. The Democratic Party has been responsible for all the illegals who have been dumped into this country. So how is this country free? What freedoms do the American people have when we don't have safety? We don't have our family structure back. America is headed down the wrong road. And again, for Larry Hoover to be sitting in prison all of this time, over 50 years, and you don't have compassion for him, and yet you want to keep him locked up, but you'll let illegals come to this country, destroy the American way of life, take over the Black community, sell drugs, bring trafficking in, killing American citizens, and yet you would free them automatically? This country needs a checkup from the neck up to the American people and patriots across this country. If we don't see where we're headed, and we're headed to total destruction, the celebration of 250 years of freedoms, again, to the American people and patriots across this country, what freedoms do we have? God bless you. Let us get together and be one America and make this country great again. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Y'all have a great evening.